Hey all. Well, as you can tell, I'm here to talk about one thing, and that was the passing of Terry Bollea, otherwise known to a lot of us, including myself, as Hulk Hogan. You know, a lot of people look at this week and they say that this week has been one, you know, crapola week. We'll put it that way. I don't want to say the other word until I get past a certain time limit here on YouTube, but it's been one of those crapola-like weeks. I mean, if you're someone like my parents, my aunts, that grew up in the 50s, lived and raised families in the 50s and 60s, then this week overall started out very crapola-like, because you found out that Connie Francis had passed away. And, for that generation, that's a huge loss. Very beloved singer, known for Where the Boys Are, not just the song, but the movie, and, and other notable songs as well. But then, fast forward, then you find out about Malcolm Jamal Warner, known as Theo Huxtable, in the Cosby Show, passing away due to him being a victim of drowning in the ocean in Costa Rica. And then, if that's not all, not even 24 hours later, you find out that rock icon, very, influential icon in music and entertainment, Ozzy Osbourne, passes away. And then you think, well, it can't get any worse. It gets worse. Because today, I wake up, like a lot of you woke up, and find out that Hulk Hogan has passed away. And not only that, you also find out that, if I can bring this guy's name up, right here, you find this dude has passed away. I don't know if you can read that. But yeah, Chuck McGowan, I think. He did this song here. It's called Feeling So Good. Trumpet and all that. You find out that he passed away today as well. And then on top of that, you have what happened with Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys not even that long ago. And yeah, this month, overall, this time frame of the summer has not been very good. And then, like I said, this week overall has just been one of those, I guess I can say it now, shitty weeks, if you will. But, as far as, Hulk Hogan goes, I grew up on the guy. I grew up on him from when I was, I think, six years old, 5, 6 years old. I grew up on him. And I grew up on him mainly because I used to watch Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling. As a matter of fact, if I can get it out of here without any, well, maybe not, but I do have the cassette tape somewhere. It's in there somewhere. I'm not going to pull it out, but I do have it. It's a cassette tape, one of the singular cassette tapes they released with 2 episodes of Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling. And I remember watching that in the 80s on CBS. It aired at 8 o'clock. I remember specifically watching it, and it would be around the 8 o'clock hour, and right after it would be the original 1980s take on the Berenstein Bears. Yeah, quite an hour block, right? But I remember watching that, and that's how I got introduced to some of the wrestlers at that time frame, like Wendy Richter, Tito Santana, Superfly Jimmy Snuka, Andre the Giant, Roddy Piper, Iron Sheik, and all that. And I remember watching that as a kid. And then it was my older sister that kind of let me know that, hey, these wrestlers you see in the cartoon and you see in the live action segments, you know what, they actually have a wrestling show that comes on later on in the day. Basically late morning, early afternoon. So, around the mid to late 80s, I started watching wrestling live action wise in the afternoon, weekday afternoons, as well as I started watching it, primarily on the weekends, because of the fact that I was, again, I was still mostly about watching cartoons and everything, but I knew who these people were, so I would watch and I would watch and I would watch as best as I can, as best as I can at that age, if you will, or that age range between 86 to 90, 91, and all that. I would watch, so around 90, so around late 90 into late 90 into 92 and beyond, and after that, I would watch Superstars and Wrestling Challenge. That's what I would do. Well, Wrestling Challenge would come on Sundays, so that kind of conflicted with church. But I would watch Superstars, and I would watch, I would watch on Saturdays after cartoons came on and everything, and you couldn't tear me away from that. You couldn't tear me away from that whatsoever. And some of the best angles at that time happened on Superstars because they didn't have Raw yet. Once they had Raw, sometimes they would do more of the angles on there, but they would still do most of the major angles on Superstars because Raw had yet to establish itself. But yeah, it was through Superstars I saw the first interaction on screen of Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan. I saw the build to Hogan and Slaughter at WrestleMania. I saw the build, and this is ironic. It's the time frame I started to really watch Superstars more often than anything. I started to see the build to the 1990 Survivor Series. So Superstars was basically like the Superstars was like what Raw is now, primarily, and Raw and SmackDown are now. And like I said, I just remember watching, and like I said, Superstars, that first interaction between Hogan and Flair at the funeral parlor that was building to the match between Hogan and Undertaker at Survivor Series. So I saw that angle. They had Hogan show up on several other talk show segments on Superstars, and he always got a massive pop. And I remember my mom and my dad asked my aunt and my uncle if we could come over on Thanksgiving Eve, that is, in 1991, and watch Survivor Series, and they were okay with it. They even let me record it. And that tape's lost now, but I was able to record it initially when it came on. And the same was for Survivor Series 93, but Hogan was already on his already doing his semi-retirement at that time. And basically I was, like I said, I remember watching it then, and again, Superstars was like the catalyst for building up to a lot of these Hogan matches. So basically, being a fan of his for a long time, paid off. I mean, even when he went and did the NWO thing, at first a lot of fans hated him for doing that. Hated him for, basically ditching the red and the yellow and going for the black and the white. Then the black and the red is when we got the NWO Elite. But, a lot of people hated him initially when he went from this to the black and white of NWO. But here's what was interesting, though. Just like he had done with a lot, and you got to give him credit, just like he had done with a lot of fans during the Hulkamania run, the first initial Hulkamania run. Basically what happened is, being part of the NWO and creating that new boom in wrestling in the 90s, he basically got fans like me that hated what he did at first to align with him, to start donning the NWO colors, to start doing the Too Sweet and all that, and kind of side with the NWO. And because I think we always knew he was going to go back to being a face, we just didn't know when. And when he did, we saw the way they did it, despite how you might feel about WCW back then, 1999, the way they did it was kind of genius, because they knew, well, the NWO, even with the elite portion, was running out of steam, and they needed to probably get back to what made fans fans of the product. So the way they did it is they basically did a double turn. They basically came up with the idea of what would happen if the power the NWO has goes to someone like Ric Flair. Would he be fair, or would he basically let it go to his head? And then in the process, that allowed Hogan to go back to being a face. And that slowly transitioned to him going back to the red and yellow initially towards the end of his WCW run. And then when he went back to WWF in 2002, you know, when he went back there, basically, you know, he started out as a bad guy. They tried to push him as first as a bad guy, have him do things that he did to The Rock and all that. But in the end, it just didn't work out that way because fans in Toronto basically made them wake up and realize, yeah, we ain't gonna boo this guy, you know, no matter how hard you try. And, you know, honestly, they probably noticed how other fans were reacting as well. And they're like, yeah, we're not gonna boo this guy, you know, the way you want us to. We'll boo some of the things he says, like insults and all that, but we won't boo him entirely. So what did they do? Mid-match between him and Rock, turned him face and turned Rock heel, or at least did a double turn temporarily during the match. And then in Kansas City, which was like 30, 40, 60 miles away from where I was in Lawrence, they put the belt back on him, and he's back to the red and yellow. You know, around that time frame. He's back to the red and yellow around that time frame. But yeah, you know, he, despite what you feel about him personally and some of the things that controversially that he has done, you cannot deny the impact this guy has made. You can't deny the impact he's made and continues to make even after he's gone now. You know, when it comes to the wrestling business. Again, think of what you will of him personally, you know, personally outside of wrestling, you know, and he has made some mistakes. There's no doubt we all do. You know, and sometimes we have to make atone for them, and sometimes if we don't make atone, people think, you know, going to think otherwise of you, and they're going to think maybe you're not that good of a person. Look, you know, if there's a, you know, look, here's the thing. When you're a born-again Christian, you allow yourself to be baptized. You know that the Lord has forgiven your sins, past and present and future. All those sins you commit, all those lies and exaggerations you make, God, the Lord above and God above has already forgiven those. Those have already been washed away. And either you like Hogan or not, or whether you're a religious believer or not, when you hear someone like me mention that, then you know, yeah, God's forgiven Hogan for what he said and done. You know, he's up there in heaven now, you know, on a clean slate, no matter how you look at it. But yeah, there's no denying the impact he's made. I mean, for me, like I said, I wear this. You know, I had a WrestleMania 3 t-shirt my grandpa gave me when I was young. You know, I have the anthology 3-disc set, I think 3-4-disc set that WWE put out. You know, I have this here as well. You know, so for me, probably being the biggest Hulkamaniac fan in my family is, you know, would be an understatement. I have a big figure that my family got me. My family got me several years ago of Hogan. It's in the closet somewhere, but it's a big figure. I've shown it before, and I have that as well. But yeah, the impact he's made, and I even have his book. I even have his book down here. It's right there. But yeah, the impact that he's made on the wrestling business, outside of the personal stuff, that, you know, the personal controversial stuff that, you know, has followed him throughout his life, you know, and probably, you know, it's going to follow him, you know, after life as well. But again, you know, God has forgiven us for everything we've done, past and present, sinful wise, to where we don't have to worry about going straight down. You know, we're going to be up there, especially if we're giving our lives to him. And, you know, the thing is, like I said, Hogan did that, and Hogan's been forgiven, so he's up there enjoying life. But again, outside of that, you can't deny the cultural impact he's made on the wrestling business as a whole. I mean, everybody is saying this. If it wasn't for Hulk Hogan and Hulkamania, you know, doing what it did, you know, in 1984, and even before that, in 1983, was the AWA, and his role as Thunderlips in Rocky III, which led to Hulkamania being born in the AWA. If it weren't for that, if it weren't for him going to WWF, you know, going back at least, this would be his second, because his first initial time, you know, he was a heel. He was managed by, you know, Freddie Blassie, and, you know, Vince Sr., I think, didn't want him to do the movie, and he did. And and that's what led him to go back to the AWA and all that. And I think something happened there to where they wanted his residuals or something. VENMO wanted his residuals or something, wanted some kind of part of the profit or whatever the case may be. And because that didn't work out, Hogan said no to that. That's what led to him leaving AWA and going back to WWF. And that's what led him to winning the championship from Iron Sheik, at Madison Square Garden in 1984. And that's what really kick-started off Hulkamania on a national multimedia mainstream level, more so than it was taken off in the AWA. And as a lot of people have said, if there's no Hulkamania, there's no WrestleMania. And if there's no WrestleMania, none of us, like me, you, or anybody else, are fans. Heck, there may not even be a WWE right now if it wasn't for Hulkamania doing what it did to help launch WrestleMania into the stratosphere and launch the company known as WWE now into the stratosphere. There probably wouldn't be any of that right now. I mean, heck, when he went to WCW, even in '94, as the red and yellow Hulkster and then NWO and all that, there probably wouldn't have been a Monday Night War. There probably wouldn't have been WCW being put on the global map more so than ever been. Being more of an attraction to celebrities and mainstream media than WWF if it wasn't for Hogan. Heck, TNA, when they had him and Bischoff temporarily, felt the same, elevation, if you will, for a time. People saw Hogan going to TNA and they're like, hey, this guy, this company, I should say, must be important, must be a big deal. Let's go check out TNA. And because of Hogan being there, it got eyes on their product more so than ever, to where people took notice. If they didn't already, they started to take notice, for the first time, if not more than ever, on people like AJ Styles, Bobby Roode, Jeff Jarrett. They knew who Jeff Jarrett was, but if they haven't seen him in a while, they saw him for the first time here. Once again, they put eyes on him. They put eyes, like I said, on AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, Frankie Kazarian, Bobby Roode, James Storm, you name it. Nick Aldis, Magnus, if you will. All the potential unknowns that you may have known of in the first 8 years of TNA's existence got more eyeballs put on them because of Hogan showing up there and being part of that. You cannot deny his impact and influence and how he got these companies acknowledged and recognized and put on the map permanently, if temporarily, because of his presence there. You can't deny that. You can't deny that whatsoever. And as crazy as it sounds, if he was healthy enough, if you will, I would not be surprised if Tony Khan, whether people want to say this or agree with this or not, Tony Khan, I believe, would have tried his best if the opportunity presented itself to bring him into AEW. You know that as well as I do. If he had the opportunity to do it, and Hogan wasn't contractually obligated to other things, including WWE, Tony Khan would have brought him in. You know that, because he knows. Because Tony Khan, as a wrestling fan, knows the cultural impact Hogan has made on the business and the cultural impact and influence and elevation he's given every promotion he's been part of. So yeah, you can't deny to me that he wouldn't have done it, because he would have. Tony Khan most certainly would have done that. But, now we'll never know. We'll never know. But, again, despite what you think about him personally as a human being, you cannot deny his contributions to the wrestling business overall, and how he opened the door for people like The Rock, people like Cody Rhodes, people like John Cena, people like Stone Cold Steve Austin, Becky Lynch, you name it. You cannot deny the impact and influence he had on them, to where now they, can cross over to mainstream media and star in movies and shows outside of the wrestling ring, outside of WWE. You cannot deny he didn't have that influence. He has influence. Heck, he has that same kind of influence on people that are in AEW and TNA. They're able to get agents, or able to sign with agencies and all that, get agents and all that to help them go and cross over, and all because he did it on a mainstream level in the first place. It's all because he first did it on a mainstream level, not just at Rocky 3, but primarily with this. So you cannot deny, again, you cannot deny the impact. You cannot deny the impact he's had, the cultural influence and impact he's had in the wrestling business and outside of it. You know, again, think of him as you as a person personally, and all the things he was wrong about doing. He's a born-again Christian. He's been baptized. He's been forgiven for those sins. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing to know. But, yeah, I am thankful for him making wrestling what it is today, helping putting it on the map. Whether you like him or not, you have to agree that he is the reason we as wrestling fans and the wrestling business as a whole is where it's at today. But my prayers and condolences go out to his family and friends. And thank you, Hogan, for all the memories and all that. You will be missed. And guys, let me know what your favorite Hogan memories are down below in the comment section, as well as during the live chat during the premiere. Like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel. Also click on the links to find my content elsewhere outside of YouTube, as well as click on the Teespring store for merchandise you can't get anywhere else. But guys, let me know what your memories are. And again, Hogan, thank you for the memories. You would truly be missed. And that's all I can say, guys. Talk to you later.